I'm at the fabulous State Library of Victoria today, and I'm here to talk to a couple of librarians about their card catalogue. This is what they used to use before the internet came along to find and retrieve items in the library. This is... come down this way. Wow, this is amazing.
My name is Andrew McConville and I work here at the State Library of Victoria. I started in 1995 and we're here looking at the old library card catalogue, but actually this predates my time at the library by some years, but for 100 years or close to 100 years this was the way people found anything in the library. So it recorded all of the items that came into our library collection, all of the books and magazines, etc. It detailed the authors and titles and subjects and then indicated where the books were within the library, whether they were on the shelf, whether they were in storage. Obviously over the last 30 years things have gone online and we have a fully online catalogue now. We still do use cards for some of the older indexes to newspapers or to particularly arcane collections. But yeah, it's sort of a very important part of our history, and as I say, it still has some relevance in that there will be some things that maybe need to be checked on the card catalogue merely because there might be some confusion about them when you look at the online catalogue. So yeah, it still has a practical place in the library, but also it's a really important part of our history and we're retained forever, hopefully.
So could you walk us through sort of the process of how someone would first create a card in the catalogue?
Yep.
As a librarian, then how would a library user come and use those cards to find stuff?
Yep. So basically, and I've got to emphasise that I'm not nor ever have been a cataloguer. So, and the other side of it is that when I asked around, there's pretty much no one left at the library who used the catalogue in a really practical way. Very occasionally people still, it's here because people still use it to check up on old records occasionally, but generally it would have been very similar to what we have now, which is basically you have an item, you do a card, you do a catalogue record for it, which would basically be the author and title and subject and publication details. And in the old days of cards, you'd have a main entry, which might be the author entry, and then you'd have, say you assigned a couple of subject headings to it, then you'd have cards for each of those subjects that would direct you to that particular item. You'd have the Dewey number on it, which obviously tells you where the item is. And then also you'd have things like see references or see also references. So if somebody was looking up, an example might be, and I haven't actually checked this, so I hope I'm right, but an example might be, say, the old subject heading for cinema or film was, I think, moving pictures or something like that. So therefore, you might have a card under cinema that says see moving pictures, and you might have a card under film that says see moving pictures. And you think of any other thing, many other items where you have a specific subject heading, and then you've got see also references that take you back to that subject heading.
Yeah, all done manually by hand on paper.
At some stage they started to type them up, but you'll find plenty of handwritten cards here. And what would generally happen is that, actually it's probably easy to use one of these. When people did card catalogues, then obviously you've got to file them, so you can take this rod out. And obviously we wouldn't want people to do this because otherwise cards go missing. But when you're actually filing, what had happened would be people would have done their cards, and then they'd file the card and they'd put the rod back in, so the cards that they're waiting to file would sit on top of the rod, and then someone would go through and say, oh yeah, that's in the correct position, because obviously if the card's out of order, no one's ever going to find it. And I mean, even with catalogue records up until very recently, they basically were based around what would fit on a card. So even though they were records that were to a online catalogue, so therefore there's not really any great restrictions on how much you can fit on an online catalogue, but they tended to be based around the rules that related to what you could fit on a card that's this size. and you can see here there's handwritten cards, and also type cards. And with each of them, we also have, in each of these drawers, I think there's a how to use this catalogue. So this basically tells you how you'd go about using the catalogue. The idea of going to Dewey numbers, etc., I think was around the opening of the Dome in 1913. So I think they started cataloguing things back in about 1891. I think the handout says, and then once they catalogued in hundreds of thousands, I think they then started to use the library catalogue for library things. Prior to that, I think they probably just had them organised alphabetically around the shelves.
This is fascinating.
Yeah, so this is sort of this is what you would have come in. As you see, there's drawers all over the place, and there's drawers that are empty up the top just because of storage. But this is what you would have come into. These are sort of a combined, I think it's a combined catalogue, so therefore you'll find subjects, you'll find authors, you'll find titles, so you're not having to look. Sometimes libraries might have had a separate title catalogue, a separate subject catalogue, a separate author catalogue. But here, if you open any of the drawers, you'll come across particular catalogue cards that might be under the author's name, they might be a subject, they might be a title. And back when they transferred these, they transferred catalogue, I think it was probably going back to the 80s, and they had a microfiche catalogue, and then we had an online catalogue again. That'll be in that little history that I'll give you. But obviously some of our catalogue records, we're still upgrading catalogue records because some of them date back to the 19th century, and they might have very skinny records that aren't really, they still exist on our catalogue, but we're obviously upgrading records to ensure that they all sort of meet the sort of modern standards, even though some of those records might have been done 150 years ago.
Right.
So they didn't have the sort of level of detail that you might want now.
So what's the process of going through the individual items on the shelves or in the collections and digitising those catalogue records? What do you take the information off the card, or do you create?
Well, I think what they did, and as I say, this is even before my time, but yeah. I think they basically got. I think they sent catalogue cards off. I think they went offshore, and they basically just created a pretty basic catalogue, and then worked from that. I think actually I should have. They might have microfished them, I think, and then had them keyed in, and then sort of it's a whole process of quality control, etc. But still, inevitably, over at that stage, the library is well over 100 years old, and so there would have been records that didn't meet the sort of standards of the day, but are still on the catalogue. So sometimes on our catalogue, on our online catalogue, you'll find very basic records that won't have any subject headings or anything, and so it recognises the book, but they're catalogue records that we would be continue updating as we recognise those, and it will be there's been projects to try and ensure that all our records are improved where they need to be.
Nice.
Yeah.
Wow, it's a lot of history.
It is a lot of history. Well, it's a sort of a been getting books since 1856. So there'll be that's one of the oldest libraries in Australia. So therefore, there'll be records going back, and we never remove anything from the collection. So therefore, we'll in theory still have everything we had when we first opened. So that's one of the things I guess about a state library is that it's not a collection that most libraries obviously weed things out and replace them with newer things, but we retain everything that comes into our collection.
That's just mind-boggling.
It is extraordinary, yeah. So what it means is we have more and more storage. So we have a couple of big off-site, or one big off-site store, and we're building a second one now. But obviously, one of the things with everything, with so many things going online, is that it does mean that you're still going to store it, but you don't have to physically store it in the way that you have to store a book. So that will, over time, cut down on the amount of storage we require. But storage will still continue to expand, because there will be, things that are in print. Even if we're getting new things as e-books, etc., there's still going to be things that we come into our manuscripts collections, for instance, collections of papers. That's always going to happen, and they'll be things we seek out. So therefore, they will be things that we continue to require physical storage for.
Well, thank you so much, Andrew. It's been an absolute pleasure looking at this stuff.
No worries. Well, I hope I've got all the information right, because as I say, I'm not an expert on the card catalogue, so I hope I haven't given any. If I have, when people see the video, they'll tell me.
Yeah, I think you'll be all right.
Yeah.